Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I'm glad that I see this part of the participants that will follow these activities regarding our panel session, which is one of the important issues for the TSG3, not only for the TSG3 pillar, but important issue for the Adriatic-Ionian region. I would like in the beginning to say that I'm sorry because co-chair, Mr. Mitja Britzel, is not with us. He's on the meeting on the other, I think in Vienna, or it was something which he taken as a so-called obligation before, since that we expected that forum will be earlier in the beginning of the May, but unfortunately the meeting was appointed before between Slovenia and Austria, and because of that Mitja has to be there. So I will try to replace them in the capacity as they can, but I'm not sure that I will succeed in that. He is really important person and very wise and very nice. So he sent a greeting to you, and also I would like to greet you all on behalf of Bosnia and Herzegovina and on behalf of all TSG3 members. The scope of this important issue is actually of the session, which title is Promoting Climate Change, Adaptation and Disaster Risk Prevention through RBM, ICZM and MSP, River Basin Management, Integrated Coastal Zone Management and Marine Special Planning, is to explore the various approaches and tools that can be employed to enhance resilience and adaptive capacity in the face of climate change impacts and natural disasters. The session will focus on the regional river basin management, integrated coastal zone, and maritime special planning as a key framework for promoting sustainable development and disaster risk reduction in the Adriatic-Ionian region. A specific attention will also be devoted to the transboundary cooperation in the framework of the regional and sub-regional mechanism. The objective of the session is to facilitate a dialogue among stakeholders, experts, and policymakers on the challenges and opportunities associated with promoting climate change adaptation and disaster risk prevention through RBM, ICZM, and MSP. Participants will be invited to share their experience, best practices, and innovative solutions related to these frameworks, as well as to identify key priorities for future actions. The session aims to contribute to the development of more integrated and common effective approaches in order to effective post-section for the building climate resilience and reduction disaster risks in the region at the terrestrial and coast part of the macro region. As you know, in the last period we had huge flooding in Italy, in Bosnia, in Croatia, in Slovenia, in Macedonia, and everywhere in the region. So because of that, this session will send some messages that we will accept and then try to work in that sense. Thank you very much, and I would like to call Ms. Gabi to continue with moderation as a moderator of this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senad. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear panelists, I would also, on behalf of the European Commission, like to very warmly welcome you to Sarajevo, but of course also to this session on promoting climate change adaptation and disaster risk prevention through regional river basin management, integrated coastal zone management, and maritime spatial planning. I would also like to give a warm welcome to the colleagues joining online. We have 2 panelists joining online, and I hope a large audience from all over the region. A few words on housekeeping. We will hear 4 presentations, as I said, some of them online, some of them from our panelists and colleagues who are here with us today. And afterwards, we will have also some time for questions and answers and comments from the side of the audience. I would like to ask and remind the panelists to stick to the 15 minutes agreed, or to make sure that we have enough time for all the speakers and also still a bit of time for questions and a debate afterwards. And I would like to maybe proceed to start with the first presentation, which will be given by Ms. Daniela Addis. Just to confirm, do we have Daniela there online?
Good morning.
Very well.
Good morning. Can you hear us? Good morning from Venice.
For a minute while I introduce you.
Can they hear us or?
Yes.
We can hear you.
I can hear you, but I don't think the room.
We can hear you
but
and we can
we
see.
use two channels, so I see you on YouTube and I will speak on Zoom.
Yes.
I can see that there is Daniela Addis
But we can
online
follow.
and Pierpaolo Campestrini as a second one. Maybe for the time being, I would suggest to mute yourselves.
I'm not Daniela, but I am Pierpaolo.
Very good. Thank you very much. Pierpaolo, we will have you later in the program. So we start with Daniela. And Daniela Addis is the founder and director of the Addis law firm Environment & Sea, based in Italy. And she's also the national coordinator for Oranto Camp for Italy. She has more than 20 years of experience in environmental law and the law of the sea, ocean governance and sustainable development. Her work focuses on the planning, regulation and protection of marine coastal spaces and resources on a large scale at national, regional and international level, and in particular in the Mediterranean region, and also on the creation and management of national and international projects promoting sustainable development goals and implementation of international law. Daniela's presentation in this session today will be on the Camp Otranto project, which is an excellent example of transboundary implementation of the ICZM protocol. And Daniela, without further ado, I would like to give you the floor for your presentation.
Strategy. If you can please show my PPT presentation, so maybe it will be easier for all the participants to follow my speech. Can you hear me? Yes? Hello?
Do you hear us still? We can hear you very well, but we don't see the presentation yet.
Okay. I can let you.
Yeah, we can also share it from our computer. You hear me? Please just say whenever you want to move to the next slide, and our technician will help us with that.
Yes. We can go to the next slide, please. The first one. I don't see the slides. Sorry.
We're on the first slide, the opening slide.
The opening slides, because I cannot see. Oh. All right, yeah. Now I see the first one. Okay, next, please. Okay. Within the framework of the UNEP-MAP Barcelona Convention system, the proposal of a transboundary, this one, yes, Thank you very much. So I can talk about the Camp Otranto project that within the framework of the UNEMAP Barcelona Convention system, the proposal of a transboundary camp project for the Otranto Strait area between Albania and Italy was launched in 2018 to promote harmonized transboundary coastal management approaches. The Otranto camp is the first transboundary project since the launch of the Coastal Area Management Program, let's say the camp, in 1989. The agreement between the parties, that means the Ministry of Tourism and Environment of Albania and the Ministry of Environment and Energy Security of Italy, and the Priority Action Program Regional Activity Center, the PAPRAC of the UNEMAP, was signed in March 2021. With the overall objective of experimenting with transboundary and integrated coastal zone management, implementing both the ICZM protocol and the marine spatial planning at national, local, and transboundary levels, the actions of the Otranto camp mainly aims at progressively reduce pollution, with particular attention to marine litter by developing good practices shared between Italy and Albania, improving the sustainability of the tourism sector, in particular through the assessment of selected tourism activities, and preserve, protect, and restore the health and integrity of coastal and marine ecosystems, particularly in existing and also potential Natura 2000 network sites through the examination of different area-based management tools and other effective area-based conservation measures, the OECM, both within and beyond national jurisdiction. Next slides, please. About the project timeline, we already said that the agreement was signed in March 2021, and in the same year we had the detailed project formulation until the section conference that took place online in December 2021. The project implementation and deployment is envisaged during the biennium to 2022 and 2023. We had the midterm conference last 11 May in Brindisi. We are going to have the finalization integrations of results next September, October, and therefore the final conference on December 2023 in Albania, followed by the post-project activities in 2024. Next slide, please. Concerning the organizational structure, the project is coordinated by PAPRAC with the support from INFORAC and the national project coordinators. Implementation is supervised by the Camp Otranto Steering Committee with the special involvement of the two already mentioned ministries from Albania and Italy. We also have the Tavolo or Triesa Camp Otranto, that means the table, a special committee established in the two partner countries to support the implementation of the project by ensuring the contribution of institutional actors at national and local level, in particular the Vlora region in Albania and the Puglia region in Italy. Next slide, please. The project is organized into horizontal activities and individual transboundary activities. The horizontal activities, which are mandatory actions to be included in every camp project as they are functional to the project, and transversal activities, aim at sharing experiences, increasing skills and competencies, promoting dialogue between institutions, experts, and local communities. These include the coordination and monitoring of the project, integration of the results, the capacity building with the objective of building and strengthening the capacities and also competencies of the public administrations involved in Camp Otranto. The data collection and management, highlighting the importance of the tool to support the knowledge of the marine environment as an integral part of ICZM. And therefore, the awareness raising and dissemination of results, with the organization of various awareness raising activities and events, ensuring the dissemination of the project results and the transfer of information also through the organization of several training courses. Next slide, please. In particular, the individual transboundary actions as project tools include the establishment and implementation of an ICZM management and audit system. We call it ICZM SAS. It's a sort of a system to assess, validate, or certify and continuously improve local processes and initiatives in coastal areas, in accordance with the ICZM protocol. We also have the methodological guidance, better saying a process to develop specific recommendations on the best application and implementation of the Common Regional Framework methodological guidance for ICZM, which was adopted by COP21 in 2019, which is based on its piloting in the project area. Therefore, we have the preparation of a feasibility study for the identification of a complex and integrated area-based management tool, area ABMT, within the project area, as far as possible, including the 2 national parks and the transboundary part. Last but not least, the development of a concept note on MSP for the Albanian part, based on the Intel experiences with the implementation of the MSP directive. Next slide, please. The main results of the Camp Otranto concern identified and tested ad hoc tools and methodologies for ICZM, considering transboundary areas and including MSP as the main tool process for implementing ICZM in the marine part of the coastal zone. Support for sustainable coastal activities with particular reference to nature conservation, tourism, fishing, maritime transport, and economic activities that generate marine pollution, with a particular focus on marine litter. Strengthen the capacities and skill of national and local administrations for sustainable coastal and marine management, including through the exchange of experiences and collaboration between the Albanian and Italy in the implementation of ICZM and MSP, and therefore the awareness raising and dissemination of lessons learned through the organization of participatory workshops and training courses organized in the Vlora and Puglia regions on the concepts of ICZM MSP, ecotourism in the Vlora region, data management, including with the IMOP info system, the marine litter and also fishing for litter, and the area-based management tools. Although the training courses will be organized at national level, participants from both countries will be invited, thus ensuring the transboundary exchange of experiences. Next slide, please. You may find further information on the project website, camp-otranto.com. And I thank you very much, and I will please to answer to any question you might have. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniela, for this very interesting presentation of a transboundary project to reduce marine litter, prevent pollution, and strengthen biodiversity conservation in the South Adriatic Sea. Thanks also for excellent time management. We will have plenty of time for debate and discussion if we go on like this. I would, as a second panelist, like to hand over to Dr. Evangelia Avramidou. She is an associate researcher at Laboratory of Forest Genetics and Biotechnology at the Institute of Mediterranean Forest Ecosystems in Greece. She has lots of experience, over 10 years of experience on plant genetics and epigenetics, and her research interests mainly focus on forest plant adaptation, plant biodiversity, plant molecular population genetics, and epigenetics. And her presentation will be on the holistic approach for resilient terrestrial and coastal ecosystems. Thank you very much for being with us today, and over to you.
Thank you very much. I would like also to thank you for the invitation. I'm very glad to participate here. It's my first time in this forum. Okay, I will try to explain how can we protect plant genetic diversity and simultaneously protect carnivores in the terrestrial ecosystems. Next slide, please. Okay, apart from carnivores like bears, cougars, and wolves, we have also smaller carnivores like raccoons, insects, and arachnids that play a significant role in the ecosystem. Relationships between carnivores and plant genetic diversity is complex, and it depends in the ecosystems. However, overall carnivores contribute to ecological balance of terrestrial ecosystems, indirectly promoting plant genetic diversity. I will explain how. Please, next. Okay. So, what is the correlation between carnivores and plant genetic diversity? First of all, food source. Carnivores rely on diverse range of prey species for food, but if we sustain plant genetic diversity, then these carnivores can feed from the prey animals, and then by protecting the plant species that carnivores prey up, we directly preserve the carnivores themselves. Second, habitat preservation. What do we mean? If we conserve plant communities, we maintain intact ecosystems that can support carnivore populations by providing the necessary resources and habitats they need to thrive. Next. Trophic interactions, what do we mean? If carnivores are integral components of food webs and ecological interactions within ecosystems, they help regulate prey populations. By safeguarding the carnivores, we contribute to the stability and health of the entire ecosystem, including the plant populations they interact with. And conservation hotspots, what do we mean by hotspots? Hotspots is the places that we have a lot of genetic diversity of plant biodiversity and all this. In that ecosystems, the carnivores live and reproduce and thrive. If we protect those ecosystems of plants, we can also protect the carnivores populations. Next. But how is this all correlated with genetic diversity? Genetic diversity is the first and the key role that ensures the sustainability through time. What do we mean? If we have gene diversity, we have more a capacity to overcome climatic changes and more sustainability and more adaptation. So a high level of variation of genetic variability safeguards the potential for ecosystems to have a long-term sustainability. And we have, we have marginal tree populations. What do we mean marginal tree populations? Like fungus, the distribution of fungus, it stops in Greece. So these marginal tree populations have a unique genetic diversity that we have also to protect in order to have them the long term of the climatic changes. As you can see also in the references, we have a lot of studies that they are for interactions between carnivores and plant genetic diversity. And I would also like to point out the significant role of epigenetics. What is epigenetics? Epigenetics is the mechanism that triggers gene expression, but without DNA alteration. That means that we don't see anything different in DNA, but we can see difference in how the plants or animals or people can react to sudden changes in the environment. And this is very important. Now it's always, we have more studies in that because we see that a plant, if it has some drought resistance, this can be also have heritability to next generation without altering the DNA sequence. And this is very important for the long-term sustainability. We have three main mechanisms of epigenetics: DNA methylation, modification of histones, and microRNAs. Yes, please. So this is the important also that we need to study the interaction between genetic and epigenetic. So we have an holistic idea how ecosystems can maintain and have the sustainability to go further. Please, next. And I would also like to point out that we have Natura 2000 in all over Europe that is a network of core breeding and resting sites for threatened species and some rare natural habitats. And in that sites, carnivores also live and reproduce. So if we want to secure carnivores populations in the long term, if we go in order to reassure and protect carnivores' long-term population, survival, primary conservation of their natural habitats must be secured. Next. Here you can see the Natura 2000 network, which is a really big network, and from the white spots and then the geographic region. yes, next. So how can we do this? By conserving genetic diversity is the key element for conserving biodiversity and carnivores population stability. Natura sites can be the first sites that we can implement in that. And combining that study, genetic, the epigenetic, also physiology characteristics and indicators will be like we measure them, and then we can know in the long term how the population will go and secure the sustainability of them. For example, in Greece, we have some Natura 2000 sites in Mount Parnanas that has a unique forest of Juniperus drupatia that is the only site in Greece. There in the Lebanon and Syria, it has some populations. Mountain Iti that has a lot of species, and also we have there the wolf Canis lupus, which is also in the mountain. Mount Parnitha that it also has a lot of taxa and maintain populations of Abies cephalonica, Juniperus, Platanus, and we have also 39 mammals, from which 25 are in the IUCN red list, and also the red fox from forest population in the mountain. So we can have all this by secure the sustainability of forest ecosystems through the study of genetic and epigenetic parameters in order to enhance and protect terrestrial ecosystems. And this project idea, it complies with the priority action top 3.2, transnational terrestrial habitats. It specifically will improve the resilience of large carnivores population in the face of environmental threats and risks. Here that I explained that carnivores are animals that primarily feed on other animals. They play an essential role in terrestrial ecosystems, not only by controlling prey populations, but also by influencing plant genetic diversity, because they can trigger a trophic cascade, they can carry seeds in a long term, and also they can have, through digestive system, also the seeds can go and plant, and so we have gene flow. And then through pollination, because they act as pollinators, the insects also, for various plant species, we can modify the physical structure of the habitats, and through the nutrient cycling, through the defecation and decomposition of carcass, carnivores release these nutrients back into the environment. Thank you for the presentation. I think I finished.
Thank you do you hear me? Yes. Thank you very much, Evangelia, for explaining the relationship between carnivores and plant genetic diversity and calling for a holistic approach to secure the sustainable management practices. I suggest we move on to our third presentation. Our third panelist is Ms. Margareta Breil. She is working for the Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change, which is an Italian foundation uniting research units which investigate and model our climate system and its interactions with society. Margareta is an urban planning by training and focuses on the assessment of climate policies, and in particular in urban and coastal areas. And her presentation will be on the knowledge for resilience in the Adriatic area, existing resources and open questions. Over to you, Margareta.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's a great honor to be able to present the results of a project I'm coordinating. It is a project, I'm taller than the others, okay. Okay, and the mic is adaptive, so, okay. Yes, it's very interesting for us to be able also in this wider context, which is the Adrian strategy. We are working in the CREATE project in the Italy-Croatia transboundary project. Can you please show the next slide? It is a cluster project. We are 8 partners and are working for just a bit more than 1 year. Almost finished. And the logic of this project is not to create new knowledge, but to summarize somehow what has been produced in the Italy-Croatia project and beyond in terms of climate change strategies, project knowledge produced in applying strategies for mitigating and first of all adapting to climate change. For 8 partners, 4 from Italy, 4 from Croatia. And next month, our final conference will be on the 14th of June. So please, if you are interested, stay tuned. And what we did is we analyzed the project outcomes. We talked to project coordinators from many of these projects financed previously or finishing now, and try to make this knowledge available for end users. Next slide, please. What we did, we organized a series of webinars, which was really successful. We had sometimes more than 300 people attending in a single webinar. The last one will be on governance and will take place the 15th of June. The other webinars are visible on our YouTube channel where they have been recorded. They are all held only in local languages. That means only in English and Croatian to make it more accessible to end users, because we are aware that many of those who are implementing policies, both in Italy and in Croatia at the local level, have difficulties and do not access so well knowledge produced in English. We are creating a knowledge inventory based on what has been produced. We are redacting an adaptation handbook which summarizes and gives best practice examples. We held workshops on governance because this seems to us to be one of the key issues on how can local and regional actors implement policies which are necessary for having also what Eva was mentioning before, a sustainable management of the territory. We launched an Adriatic Adaptation Award. We will award the winners during our final conference, calling for replicable good practices which have already been implemented in the area. So in the Italian and Croatian coastal area belonging to the project. And we are working on new project ideas. Next slide, please. As one of the policies which have been investigated in the project we saw and the projects we saw, maritime spatial planning played a role, and this is why I choose this as one of the examples to show how climate adaptation can enter transversally into different existing policies, like what Daniela presented before, integrated coastal zone management, as well as land management and terrestrial planning and maritime spatial planning. The objective, as defined by the directive, is to analyze of maritime spatial planning is to analyze and organize human activities in marine areas and to achieve ecological, economic, and social objectives. And one of these is to create a marine environment which is sustainable and can sustain human activities and nature also in a changing climate. I think I do not need to illustrate to you what the expected impacts of climate change are on the marine environment by increasing water surface temperatures, changes in currents, changes in the frequency of extreme events, species migration, extinction of species. All these effects have their impacts on how we are interacting with the marine environment, either for protecting it or for using it as a source of, as an economic source. Okay, next one. So this is not, this is just a casual list of things which climate change, consideration of climate change within maritime spatial planning would require. There's no order of priority in here. Consider the increase of marine protected areas to accommodate migration trends in species, because one adaptation strategy of species to changing climate could be to move northwards. Use other effective area-based conservation measures that were also mentioned before by Daniela as one of the measures to be considered in the CAMP project in Otranto. So use any occasion for creating habitats, reserves for species where they can live without much of disturbance. Increase the connectivity between single protected areas, make the management of areas more efficient. Many of the areas are just established but have no real management. Planning for climate refugia using, for instance, EUSAIR, and restore, preserve degraded marine habitats and blue carbon sinks. Next, please. One example of heavy interaction between coastal management, land management, and sea management, and the need of restoration is the strategy of beach replenishment made for coastal defense and for being able to exploit economically the coastal zone. This requires high levels, high quantities of sand, which needs to be taken from somewhere, interfering with the sea habitat. So these processes, where to take the sand from, how much, in which area, could be one of the examples of what needs to be planned further to, obviously, the sites of marine protected areas. And next slide. And the siting of areas for producing renewable energy. There is another issue connected to that. Both the siting of renewable energy as the siting of protected areas and the fishery activities, aquaculture, has high implications on how coastal population interferes with the sea, and that means that there are also potential social disequalities, and this is one of the aspects which is not always on the screen of policymakers, needs to be taken into account, how to address them, how to seize them at the beginning of the planning process, not only when all measures are planned, and see for mitigation actions and to search for interactions with the population in order to mitigate these social inequalities. Next, please. Climate change is highly uncertain, although uncertainty margins are continuously decreasing. There is one of the strategies for planning we found. This is a project I coordinated myself, the ADAPT project. We used the adaptive policy cycle to design a guidance for policymakers, which is able to accept and address also uncertainties. That means when we start a project, we create a vision and have an idea of where we want to go, and then address the vulnerabilities to climate change, setting this vision and selecting the measures, preparing the plan, and in all stages work with stakeholders. That is why this cloud is in the middle. And then in monitoring the success and comparing the outcomes of the policies with what we were planning, the monitoring is very important. This can inform, the results can inform the next step of the planning, which is modify the old plan or make a new one. Okay, next one, please. This is the parallel idea for marine spatial planning is from the PAPRAC platform on ICZM. It has the specific steps for marine and coastal planning, but the logic is the same. Next one, please. Gaps identified. We know the instruments. There is some planning ongoing, and especially in coastal zones, some very good initiatives are being created, both in Croatia and in Italy, but there is still so much to do, especially in establishing plans and then implementing them. Another big gap we detected is very much related to the project-led approach to many of these plans. That is monitoring. Once a project is finished, the monitoring ends. So for many parameters, which would be important to be monitored on the long term in order to better understand what climate change is actually doing in the Adriatic, we would need something more continuous. So find a mechanism on how projects can intervene with the permanent monitoring and establish something which remains after the end, which is obviously also a funding project. There are some legislative gaps also in terms of competences, who is competent for which type of action. So we saw coastal plans made by entities in Croatia which are not entitled to do so, but as they need to somehow deal with their coastal area, they started planning for it. Very interesting findings. So please keep following us. We have many accounts. But I would like to point you especially to, perhaps I'm not so social perhaps for that, especially to our YouTube channel. You need to precisely use for Create Climate Responses, at Create Climate Responses, where we collect all our webinars, which have a good condensation of what we are collecting as knowledge. Thank you very much.
Greta, for presenting the Create project and an excellent illustration of practices to mainstream climate change planning into marine spatial planning. Our final panelist will join us online. A very warm welcome to Mr. Pierpaolo Campostini. Pierpaolo is a research manager with a degree in electrical engineering and a diploma in plasma physics. Since the year 2000, he is the managing director of Corilla, the consortium for the coordination of research relating to the Venice Lagoon system in Italy. He will share with us a presentation on Hatch, Hadriaticum Data Hub. A very warm welcome to you, Pierpaolo, and over to you for your presentation. We can hear you. Yes, very well, thank you.
To Venice, I'm very sorry not to be here with you, but in the beloved of Sarajevo, we are very strict contact with them, and so this is also part of my personal heart is beating also in Sarajevo in this moment. However, let's go with the business and Hatch, which is a project of Italia-Croatia cooperation program, and in particular is the last, let's say, one of the last projects of which should capitalize the results of the previous one. This capitalization in particular is occurring on a specific theme, so different projects which made their own result, but we try with this one to get, which is a short project which is going to end in June this year, and we have to use this the result in order to be useful in the maritime spatial planning project of the both countries. And I wish to remind the specific objective of the cluster 4 of this one of the 6 capitalization clusters of this set of projects. Then to improve the environmental quality condition of the sea and coastal area by use of sustainable innovative technologies and approaches. What we would like to achieve in this project? We have the understanding, we have the knowledge that MSP, as other speakers said, aims to preserve and protect the marine environment, but at the same time to integrate this protection with a possible sustainable use of the marine area. So it is not the maritime special planning a directive simply for the protection, but it is a directive which would allow the blue growth and so the blue sustainable growth of the area. So the point is that in this phase where the different countries has already their plan, the European countries has already their plans, we need to make these plans active. So the methodology should be implemented, and in particular in this area, in the Adriatic Sea, we would like to make real use of the plans. So what would we need? What we would like to achieve in this project, to offering tools for rationalizing the use of the resources, to protect fragile areas, to planning a sustainable use of the marine space for supporting blue growth. And we have to follow what the program Italy-Croatia specific objectives state to improve the environmental quality condition of the sea and coastal areas by the use of sustainable and innovative technologies and approaches. So, in a nutshell, the project have a structure which would like to do these three different things. So, working on data set, because the different project, the standard project of the cooperation program produces data, but they needed to be, in some sense, harmonized and adapted to an user which is to be useful. Sorry for the wording in the marine special planning process, because therefore the policy. We have to harmonize the data, but we have also, for using the data, we need a protocol for data management. And especially these data are territorial based, so the geo platforms should be used. And we have to involve both the technical level of the administration, the officers, but also the policymakers in our exploitation of our data. What to do? Nobody has one size does not fit all, but also there are not fixed rules already stated. So still working on looking what are the best practices for the implementation of these principles. It is important. And so we implemented in the project some surveys and take the different people to look at also physically coming to some case studies and in order to see the good practices. Another important element is the involvement of the local communities, because as you know, the maritime special planning is a process which is occurring at the country level, but then must be put down in the territories, and therefore not only the national administration, but also the local one must be aware of the different initiatives, the different principles. They must be involved in the practical, at least in the application. They have been involved in the process, in principle, they have been involved in the process of the plan approval, because all the plans went to a public discussion, but most this public discussion in this case is involving not the total part of the population. The population can be, at local level, can be more interested in looking on the practical consequences of the plan. So the involvement of the local community is key for making the plan being useful at local level. So again, this is one of the projects for capitalization of the previous results. So we have to capitalize on them and to harmonize them, but also, and this is the second point, the second main aim, we have to try to from this sparse data to prepare a tool which can support the public administration and other relevant stakeholders in taking decisions related to the maritime spatial planning. So it's not only to create the plan, to design the plan, is now a matter also to implement it. So also for this case, we need a tool. These are more or less the different projects that we have been implemented. They are 6 projects dealing with different targets, of course, but most of them have acquired data or used data on both pollution and ecological presence of different species, for instance, the macrophyte and the problem of noise effect. So there are both, there were in this project both a mapping of the natural resources, but also of the pressures that these natural resources are subjected to. So what we did, and we are almost finished this part of work that will be delivered at the project end. So in few weeks, we have a so-called harmonized geodatabase. So at the end, this data need to have a place where to be put, and of course all the data coming from the project which are useful for this purpose have been uploaded, are going to be uploaded, but also other data which are useful and in any case available both at European level, and this is the example of Copernicus, but also the data which are coming from the MSP processing in the different countries, and especially from Italy. Our plan has also a part which is available in the geodatabase. The problem and the issue is how to integrate these different levels of data in an harmonized way. Let's say the wording, the technical word is interoperability of this tool, of these different database, giving some functionalities, which is interactive mapping, multi-temporal visualization, interactive dashboards, and interoperable standards. Because again, the planning, as you know, is a process. It's not just a snapshot. We have to make a film, you know, and update continuously the data which are already present in the plans with the new acquired data in different forms. So for this reason, we have to enhance our interoperability capability and also the other IT tools. So we will, at the end, of course, we had some challenges that were in some sense foreseen, but emerged clearly during the working. We have the different projects have different goals and objectives. We have different, so they were considering different spatial and temporal scales, and therefore they produce a different spatial representation, data models, data formats. And the monitoring experiences not always were finalized for the scope of MSP. So this makes the picture of data quite complex. However, we tried to find, we succeeded in finding some tools for reading the different data. Another important part of the project is the engagement of stakeholders, because at the end, we need that again, this plan is do not stay in the heaven, but we should stay in the earth, and so we need to detail with the stakeholders the different details of the how they are used, and so in order also for redesign in case the tools we are preparing. So this dialogue with the stakeholders is a was and it is an important part of the project, and we are trying also to enhance, based on some experiences performed in some of the projects that happened before, what are the so-called citizen science cooperation. And what is possible to see in the next weeks is that you will see on the web this portal of Hatch Adriaticum. We presented the presenting tools, but most important, this platform has been built in order to be available to continue also its life also after project, and the research organizations that are involved in this process, in particular National Council of Research of Italy, is available to continue to maintain the website after the project ending, and so the platform is available to be fed with data for also other cross-border projects and other activities that could be interesting, the Pillar 3 of EUSAIR, and so also outside Italy-Croatia domain. Hatch would like to be in line on the Green Deal, in particular with the 2030 biodiversity conservation strategy, and we also, as I said, we would like to be useful also in the wider EUSAIR area, because as you know, of course, also the Interreg cooperation program in this part are in some sense derived from the objective and the pillars of the different pillars of the regional strategy. So we might be useful to some of the topics identified clearly on the Pillar 3, on the environmental quality, the topic 1 and 2, but also in the other pillars, in particular in the topic 2 and 3 of the blue growth, and also for the tourist management in the topic 2. More or less, this is what we, very briefly, would like to achieve, and of course, if needed, I can give to you or to any interested person more details during the debate. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Pierpaolo, for this illustration of the Hatch project and for how data collection, analysis and management can contribute to inform policymakers and to preserve and protect the marine environment. I would like to thank again all the panelists for your very interesting presentations and also for the excellent time management. This is the advantage of dealing with scientists rather than politicians. And I would like to open the floor to the audience for your questions to the panelists, comments on the presentations, but of course also for sharing good practices from your experience. I would like to invite you, maybe when you take the floor, to introduce yourselves and to and the institution that you represent. And I see that in the back we already have a hand raised.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Federico Rossetta, and I work for Veneto region. I have a question for Pierpaolo Campostrini. Hello, Pierpaolo. So we know the experience of Corilla in maritime spatial planning at national level related to the reception of the MSP directive. Experience also as a part of a wider Venice-based team together with University of Architecture of Venice, with Consiglio Nazionale delle Ricerche, and experience that it is not limited to the Adriatic Sea, but is also extended to the Mediterranean Sea. So, according to your experience, and maybe going beyond the results of a Hatch, the question is balancing the blue growth, so the economic activities and the environmental protection is really possible. How do you imagine our seas in 10, 20 years? Thank you.
Is it on? I would suggest to maybe see if we can collect a few questions and then have the opportunity for all the panelists to address the questions. Are there more questions or comments from the audience over there? And then I think Olga as next.
So, hello. I have a question for Daniela Addis. I am Maria Letizia Vitelletti and I work with Margareta in CREATE project. I am a researcher at the National Council Research of Venice. And during the progresses of CREATE project, we discovered that many tools and methodologies have been developed in the last programming periods for adaptation to climate change and also mitigation of effects of climate change. So since Camp Otranto project, as I understand, is going to collect and develop and identify tools and methodologies for integrated coastal zone management and also maritime spatial planning, I am wondering if these tools that you have identified have been already applied, or if they can be replicated in other contexts, in similar contexts, because in our project CREATE, we face with these difficulties of apply already implemented methodologies in other similar contexts. And I think this is a very important gap in the framework that must be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. The next one is Olga in the back.
Good morning to everybody. I'm Olga Abram, coming from Slovenia, Ministry of Cohesion and Regional Development. And I would just like link my question as the colleague already asked. So you mentioned that there were several gaps identified, but do you already think how to overcome them? Do you foresee any next steps? I don't know, maybe because you mentioned that it will be very good to have monitoring of relevant parameters which are important from long-term perspective. So those methodology needs to be adjusted. Do you need additional probably research activities in this sense? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any more imminent questions or comments. Maybe, okay, yes.
I would like also to thanks to all panelists, and we prepared some questions for all of the panelists. I will start with Ms. Daniela Addis, asking her to explain us possibility on future activities and development on the project that she is national coordinator. Actually, camp are always national projects. And Bosnia and Herzegovina was the last country in the Mediterranean that finished coastal area management plan that include ICZM, MSP, and the other activities. And because of that, this is something which is very nice and very good and excellent in the so-called including make some kind of the multinational activities in the camp. Actually, I would like to ask Ms. Daniela Addis if she can explain us, is it possible that we create some sub-regional Adriatic-Ionian camp activities for all Adriatic-Ionian countries? And if answer is positive, I kindly ask you to explain us what kind of obstacle we could expect it in preparation, in implementation, and the other phase of this, or that kind of the project. The second, I would like also to ask, see that I mentioned that we will ask all the panelists some questions. For Ms. Evangelia, in your excellent, you mentioned that this project idea fully complies with TSG 3, priority action topic 3.2. Yes, this is important. This is really. Could you please tell us on possibility to expand these activities to the landlocked countries like Republic of Serbia and North Macedonia, as well on the other, as well as to the other countries that belongs to the green corridors. Actually, that green corridors are of utmost important for the carnivores population. And also for Ms. Margareta, also I would like to ask, you mentioned in your really excellent presentation, low level of implementation of existing plans and tools and the tools developed in project. Can you tell us why we find a low level implementation? Is it funding, maybe feasibility, lack of capacity, or whatever? And the other gaps in monitoring of relevant parameters. Does it mean the methodology is in problems, or search, or collecting the data, or whatever? And the last question for Pierpaolo Campostrini. How does the integration of the MSP methodology in the use of the Adriatic Sea contribute to balancing economic growth and the protection of vulnerable marine areas? And the second, in what ways can we analytical and monitoring activities carried out during the STD project help improve the conservation status of different habitats and marine species in specific environments, such as sea grasses, and mitigate anthropic pressure in the Adriatic Sea? Thank you for the answers we are expecting. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Senat, for these questions. I would suggest shall we maybe do a first round of answers and then go to next questions? I'm a bit worried that our panelists will forget the questions. Maybe we start in the reverse order of the presentations. Pierpaolo, if that's okay. We had the question about how to balance the economic growth. That was also the question from the first intervention. And the protection of vulnerable marine areas. How will our seas look like in a few years?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I am optimistic, let's say, because in the process that I followed in the last years, not only as Francesco Federico remember, not only in the sea, but also all around Europe, we met a sincere attention to this need that the fact that cannot be developed without the conservation. The deployment, exploitation of the resources in the very situation not increase so much. No? So we needed to make action, complete action also for safeguarding the environment. And among these actions, the clear allocation of uses, spatial uses of clear spatial location of uses is key, is a bare necessary condition. So in the next 20 years, how do we see the next our marine area? Here we have a big problem that we cannot mitigate too much, which is the sea level rise. The sea level will continue to rise. And this is a fact, even if we will stop our emission of CO2 in the atmosphere, that I hope that will occur as soon as possible as foreseen. But in any case, due to the inertia of the system, of the ocean system, the sea level will continue to rise. So this is something that we have to face in the next 20 years. But we may have, also for this reason, we can decrease our pressure specifically on the pollution. We can better allocating the marine uses. We can find, enlarge the protection status of our marine area, not only with the marine protected areas as seen in a specific part, no specific area can be protected, but a kind of protection can be given to the whole Adriatic and Mediterranean Sea, and this is possible, absolutely, and so I think that also for dealing with the sea level rise and the necessary adaptation measures that will be taken, especially on the coast, we will succeed. How to do so? And this is the second question that was given to me by the moderator. I mean, yes, it is a challenge. It is a challenge to make a conservation. What we can do and what we can develop is two things. The first is to improve our monitoring capacities. The monitoring it is essential. We have to look really also the small modification that can occur before they become big ones. So we can try to make some adaptation measures so we can mitigate some pressure only if we know exactly what is happening since the beginning, before the problem is huge. So the monitoring must be more detailed, and what we did in this project try also to harmonize the different data sources. Otherwise, we need more protocol, standard protocols in order to do the same in the different countries in the different way, and also to have the data connected to a single basket where everybody can see. And this must be fast and maybe also less bureaucratic, because it's true that in Europe, at least in the European Union, we have a directive, which is the Water Framework Directive, which are collecting data and they are sharing data for the status of the environment. But the way we are doing that is, in my own opinion, too slow. So the data arrives to the right person, which are in a too bureaucratic way, and too slow in order to be immediately effective. So we have to be in the next period more quick, we should be faster, not fast and furious, but fast and intelligent, because we have to make immediate use of the data connecting in order to having an adaptive management of the environment. But this is largely possible, and so I am still optimistic, even if the challenge is high.
Thank you very much, Pierpaolo, also for a sense of optimism. I think I would like to ask Margareta Breil to respond to the questions. Why are there low levels of implementation of existing plans? Why are there gaps in monitoring? And how can those gaps be addressed and overcome?
Can you hear me? Thank you. Perhaps I would like to directly connect to what Pier Paolo said, and I think we should have a talk, the two of us, about this issue, because what we see from the project of the Strand 2, we are working in the same program on the same type of projects, it was that projects have activated very intelligent and very precise monitoring activities, which then at the end of the project lack further finance. So instruments board, monitoring activities done also for several years during the project are then discontinued once the finance of the project comes to an end. And so there is a wealth of data, but it's very patchy, and I would really like to discuss with you how this funding and project-oriented monitoring strategy can be overcome into something which provides a more detailed and structured but continuous activity. This is, I think, okay. I don't have a solution for that now. I think the platform activated in Hatch can be a first part because it already makes visible, I suppose, where the gaps are, where more initiative is needed. And the Water Framework Directive could be a good example on how something like that could work in a far future, integrating a similar monitoring obligation also in the ICZM directives or maritime spatial planning directives. This is what with regards to data. And with regards to implementation, there is a lot of lack of awareness. Often it's not even that plans are there, even plans are not made and then improvised once a funding opportunity comes out. Like the recovery plans after the COVID, were a big opportunity for having, if you had something in your drawer, you could take it out. I'm thinking more about terrestrial projects, but also I think it could also work for maritime planning related initiatives. Once there is a sudden opportunity for funding, and if you don't have the plan ready, it's difficult to make the demand and to seize this funding opportunity. So there is a bit of lack of awareness also among relevant stakeholders. So this was also a strategy we try to work a lot on with our webinars, working both on stakeholders, and what we discovered while we were working was a sort of intermediate level of scientists and professionals working as consultants. Especially in the area of terrestrial planning, there is a lot of smaller local and regional actors relying on external expertise. And these were massively frequenting also our webinars. So there is a big interest in this group of professionals to learn about how climate change adaptation can be mainstreamed into different sorts of terrestrial maritime planning. So.
Thank you very much. Evangelia, to what extent could the activities of your research work be extended to other countries in the region?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's really important because if we want to secure sustainability for ecosystems, apart from our borders, the carnivores, they move. Because, okay, we have the borders, but the nature is nature and they move. So if we want to preserve, then we can go to green corridors, like you said, in Serbia, in Albania, and to tackle there and see how they move and be specific in the area so we can conduct some initial genetic monitoring from there for the populations there that they are moving and they are adapting. So we can have this initial data to tackle down to the 10 years from now how they are, so we can preserve them and we can also have a secure sustainability environment for them. So the green corridors all over. It's not only the Natura sites, or it's all over the countries. We have, because I have also speak with a professor from here, a professor from Slovenia, from Croatia, that they have spotted these areas if we have to implement this idea in their territory, so it can further expand it to Albania and all this, because the local researchers know where these populations are moving, so we can have the initial strategic point from that point and then further expand the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Evangelia. And finally, we had a question for Daniela. To what extent are the tools that you presented already applied, and how could be replicated? Could there be sub-regional camp activities?
Thank you very much for these two questions. Actually, they are quite interesting and important, and allowed me to better explain or talk about the Camp Otranto project. About the first question, Maria Letizia raised this part. Let's say that this project, then it is within, as we already said, it is within the Barcelona system framework. That means that in this case we have for the first time a transboundary project between Italy and Albania, but also including Paprac, that is coordinating and so is checking that all the tools and mechanisms that we are testing and applying in these project areas are also replicable in other countries, in the Mediterranean countries. So the idea is to test the methodologies or tools that have been already in some way touched in the Barcelona Convention system, and therefore we are implementing these ideas and improving these ideas in the way that they could be applied also in other countries in the Mediterranean context. Take into account, for instance, the methodological guidance for the Common Regional Framework for the ICZM. It is thought and it was adopted by COP19 in 2021, and with the idea to be applied in each country and the Mediterranean area. So we took this chance to better explore and taste with the specific data that we are collecting in Italy and in Albania, and also in the transboundary area, that means in the international area. Putting all together and looking how this methodological guidance can be applied also in the high sea, that means in the international sea. So this is really one of the main goals. Not to stick on the project, not to stick on the project area and in the context of the partners, but also to be replicable. So in this sense, I can also go to the other question and to answer to the other question that was posed by Sebastian, how to explain the future activities. Yes, it is the first time that we are exploring a transboundary project, the CAMP project. We may remember that the CAMP project are based on the ICZM protocol, which is a legally binding protocol for the Mediterranean area for all the 22 participants that are all the countries, including the European Union, that has ratified the protocol as well. So the ICZM protocol is part of the European acquis communautaire. And this means that the ICZM, including the MSP as a tool to be applied in the C part of the ICZM, is something that is very important for all the countries. So the camp started to be on the national level. The Camp Italy, actually, it was a trans-regional project because it included three regions, Emilia-Romagna, Tuscany, and Sardinia. So we already tested the possibility and also the usefulness to include more areas than only one, because ICZM it is specifically focused on the integration. It means that we need to work with different level of institutions. In this case, in the Campo Otranto, we are testing the integration between transnational institutions and also international institutions. The idea is to improve in transboundary context the cooperation mechanism for the implementation of the ICZM strategies and MSP tool to face different coastal and marine issues, including pollution and therefore the climate change and the climate adaptation, creating a common ground of and language as well, as a shared vocabulary, as a shared mechanism, as a shared meaning of specific concepts and shared tools and solutions within all the countries. The obstacles and challenges in this sense are, first of all, to launch a camp project, which is more institutional activity. More than a project, it can be defined as an institutional activity applied in tested in focused areas. That means that the institutions, like ministries, like regional government, etc., are directly involved in the implementation and in the application of the all mechanisms and tools that are tested in the area. In this case, the countries need to propose to the Conference of the Parties of the Barcelona Convention to have a feasibility study on the area that is proposed. For instance, if all the countries of the Adriatic Sea thinks to propose this project, they should propose to have, first of all, a feasibility study on the area, and therefore the Conference of the Party will accept and this idea, funding also the next project on a transboundary area, including all the or part of the countries that are interested in the Adriatic area.
I suggest maybe to come to a close, because we don't have so many minutes left.
Yes.
Maybe a concluding sentence.
Yes. I'm concluding it. Then the major obstacles in this sense is the differences between countries on their background, legal framework and institutional frameworks. So this is something where they need to work a lot to find useful instruments to be really concretely by the institutions applied also in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniela. I'm very conscious of our time and the fact that the coffee break has started. So with your collective permission, I will steal 10 minutes from your coffee break. And we had two more colleagues who wanted to take the floor. And I'll also plea for a short formulation and answers.
Super, thank you for your flexibility. My name is Zlatko Jovanovski, and I'm the head of Secretariat of Disaster Preparedness and Prevention Initiative for Southeastern Europe, which is a regional entity that combines 10 national disaster management authorities in this part of the region dealing with disaster prevention and preparedness. Having in mind that the disaster prevention is also a part of the panel, my question would be to Margareta, Pierpaolo, and Daniela, having in mind that during your project times, both Croatia and Albania adopted national strategies for disaster risk reduction. Was there any interaction between your projects and that segment? Because even Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction and even EU disaster resilience goals are encouraging us to speak with each other, the climate change adaptation tribe together with the DRR tribe. Is this happening or not?
I'll be super short. Hi, everybody. My name is Veronica Lenzi. I'm a manager for European Territorial Cooperation and International Affairs at the Emilia-Romagna region in Italy. So my question is actually for Evangelia. I was curious to know if you managed to involve also some representatives from civil society, like WWF or other organizations, in the monitoring of the Grand Carnivore's moves, and if you plan maybe, if you didn't, to work with them also in the new programming period, because I know this is something that keeps being important for the pillar. So I hope I've been brief enough.
Thank you very much for very quick and short questions. I suggest a final round, 1 minute each.
Okay. So from the side of CREATE, of course, disaster risk reduction management practices have been catalogized as climate change one form of adapting to climate change, having ready something which prepares the territory for damaging events. So this is, yes, part of our activities.
Maybe first over to Daniela, since this relates to the same question, and then Pier Paolo. Daniela, please.
Yes, thank you very much. So about the first question, no, we don't have direct interaction, but it is anyway taken into account in the concept note on MSP for the Albanian part. So in certain way, yes, we are also taking into account this kind of plan and tools. For the second question, sorry, I had some problems, so I didn't hear the question. Can you please?
That was fine. That was for Evangelia. Don't worry. The question on civil society was for Evangelia. So maybe
Okay.
Pier Paolo on the interaction
Thank you.
with.
Yes, thank you for the question. I was in Sendai 2015, so I am particularly aware of the Sendai protocol. However, I would say that this was not explicitly included, nor in the projects, nor in the MSC processes until now. I believe that this is an area where we should work more, and possibly with in the next project, this explicit link should be more directly assessed. So, I mean, this is my answer.
Thank you very much for short answer. And finally, Evangelia on the involvement of civil society.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. Indeed, we have a strong collaboration with WWF in Greece, because a colleague from me was working there, and we have some other projects. And this is also could expand to other territories, not only Greece, because they have specialty in Greece. And this is very important that you pointed out, because they also monitor the carnivores and birds and all this. And we have to have more connection, research, and NGOs in that subject. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the panelists and the audience. Thanks a lot for your interest and participation. I would like to hand over to Senat for some final words to wrap up and on conclusions.
Okay, thank you, Gabi, very much for giving me opportunity to read that conclusions we prepared before having in mind. But also, it will be the draft conclusions, and I would like that you all send the comments on these conclusions. In the next days, you will receive the email, and also it would be good that you comment. And the conclusions, I would like first to thanks to all panelists. It was a lot of science, a lot of research, a lot of work, hard work, and it was presented here during this panel session. And I hope the next panel session will be also fruitful like these conclusions. You can see here that policymakers, organizations, and governments have to work towards a more sustainable and resilient future to the region, for the region. Also, integrated coastal zone management, marine special planning, river-based management with holistic ecosystem approach are regional as effective tool for sustainable development. Also, improving waste management practices and circular economy is also priority, one of the priority for the region, special for non-EU countries. And also cooperation, knowledge sharing, and integrated approaches to promote a sustainable, harmonious relationship between human activities and nature with appropriate use of forest genetic resources have a crucial importance for sustainability forest management in the light of climate changes. So this is something what we want to offer you, and please comment, add something, and it will be very well welcome. Thank you.
Just a second, I won't take long. Thank you for your conclusions. I just want to inform you that I'm living and working on your conclusions professionally and as activists. I hope local governments will take care more of the nature than they were till now, since I'm defending forests and rivers of the Balkan region. I'm truly hoping that this will be also a new era of local governments taking care more about people and nature. So please, I'm gonna reach to you, Mr. Senad, so we can talk about it. Thank you.
Many thanks for your addressing and informing us about your activities. I always think that problems are in the local community, not at the state level or entity level or any other level. So this is important that we support people more than we supporting them now in the future, because flooding is in our houses, not at the ministries. And because of that, we have to protect floods. Also, landslide when we cut the forest happen in the local area, and because of that, local community has to be first in the.
That is a very constructive, actually, final sentence. On that note, I would like to very warmly thank our panelists, our experts joining from online and here in Sarajevo. And thanks a lot to the audience and participants for your participation and interest. Enjoy your coffee break.